Hi, my name is Dale Mazzarella. I'm a Fly Fishers International Master Casting Instructor, a longtime Wyoming fishing guide, and an award-winning coach and educator. I've put together this video series that I hope will help you become a better fisherman, catch a lot more fish, and I hope you enjoy it. So enjoy yourself, have a good time, and let me know what you think. We're going to talk about casting in the wind. There's a couple of considerations we need to have before we start. One, man, always have sunglasses, always have a hat. Always know where things are around you, your partners, your friends, your dogs. I've had a client hook a horse one time. I mean, it's amazing. You've got to be really aware of everything when the wind's blowing. The other thing is, just in general, practice casting in the wind. Practice going out to a park and making casts in all different directions off of both shoulders using different techniques. Again, I guide 230 to 250 people a year, and man, that wind starts coming up right now. You can see in a minute, you're gonna see the ribbons blowing just a little bit. We've only got about a 7 or 8 mile wind coming into my right shoulder, and sometimes it's not even that. And I have clients who can't deal with that wind. And it's just not, it's not productive if you can't cast in the wind. So work at casting in the wind. So we're going to work at casting in the wind. There's just a couple of things that are prerequisites to casting in the wind. One is you're going to have more line speed if you want to get any kind of distance at all. You're going to have narrow loops because they're more efficient. And you can go back and look at chapter 1 on a loop. I think it's chapter 1, lesson 5 is about loops, or lesson 4 is about loops. You need skinny loops to cast effectively in the wind most of the time. So we need smaller loops, we need more line speed. We also probably are going to have to double haul if we want to cast at any distance in the wind. The last thing is we always have to be concerned about safety. We don't want to get a hook in the back of our head. We don't want to break our rod. All of those things happen pretty frequently in the wind. And never mind just tangling up your flies. And the last thing is, as a general principle of casting in the wind, you want that fly line to unroll, that leader to unroll as close to the surface as you can. Because regardless of how fast your loop is, regardless of how efficient it is, if it unrolls 6 feet off the water, it's going to blow. It's going to blow one way or the other, or back. Unless it's straight behind you, it's going to affect your accuracy. So always get that fly line to unroll just as it hits the surface, it unrolls. And that's a big issue on all the different kinds of directions. So let's go into some of these casts. We're going to start with the wind coming into this shoulder, and how do you compensate for that? Wind's coming into this shoulder. If it's not too bad a wind, I'm just going to sidearm or horizontal cast. So I'm just going to do this. Keeps the fly away from me. Fly's going to be unrolled close to the surface. It doesn't spook fish. That's a good cast if the wind's not too bad. And you can see the ribbon. The wind's not bad. It's 6 or 7 miles an hour. It probably might gust to 8 or 9 once in a while. If it's a little worse, I might do the Belgian cast or the constant tension cast, and you can get on the video that talks about that to get details. But basically all I'm going to do is swing this thing up, around, and over the other side of me, so that fly goes way on the other side of me and doesn't hit me. So that's one possibility. The disadvantage of that is it's tougher to make a really tight loop, but that's certainly a possibility. The other thing I can do is turn around and do a Barnegat Bay. So I can do a Barnegat Bay. Now the wind's blowing my fly line away from me, so I do a Barnegat Bay here. So that's another possibility. Just nice tight loops. The fly line unrolls just as it hits the surface. So you'll have to practice that for accuracy. The other thing I can do is I can cast off of this shoulder. For longer distances, I probably want to cast up here. For shorter distance, and look at my trajectory. I'll kind of do it even though it's not right, but watch my trajectory. It's down. Why is it down? Because I want that fly to hit the water the second it unrolls. Otherwise, if it's up here, it's going to blow. So here, if I'm going to do an off-shoulder cast, and I can do it over this opposite shoulder off just like this too if I want to, I'm going to try to keep the trajectory down. If it's up high, that wind's going to blow that fly way off to the left. So even if I have a nice tight loop, look what happened to that fly. It just got way off accuracy. So that fly now is 15 feet left of the target from my position. So if I want to make that fly land in front of you, I have to, boom, now it landed exactly where I want it. So trajectory is important, line speed is important. You can cast left-handed if you want to. That still keeps the line away from you. So now I'm casting left-handed and the line is away from me. Again, notice the downward trajectory. You can roll cast off of this opposite shoulder because when I roll cast, it's going to blow that fly away from me and my rod. So if you want to roll cast, you can. That's going to work too, but again, have a downward trajectory so your fly straightens out. So there's a lot of possibilities. You can also do some spey cast from this direction. You've got the wind blowing into this shoulder, there's spey casts you can do, and we'll get into those when we get into the advanced section in chapter 4. We're going to talk about a tailwind now. We've got a wind coming in. I'm going to cast this direction and there's a wind coming right into my tail. So what do we do in those situations? And the biggest single rule that I tell people is don't overcast in the back. If you try to carry too much line in the back and your back loop falls apart because that wind is blowing it down, then you're not going to make a good forward cast. So you're going to get some help on a forward cast. So you don't need to make a huge long cast in the back to make a pretty good cast in the front. The other thing I tell people, I think there's a pretty big myth out there that you want to have an upward trajectory in a forward cast, and that's going to open up your loop and you're going to be able to get a sail effect forward. That's okay for moderate kinds of distances, but for long distance, I have to have enough of a back cast to cast regardless of the wind in the front. If my back cast is down in the back like this, I can't have a big long back cast because it's going to hit the surface and that's going to screw up my whole cast. I need to have a cast that's more level if I want to have a good back cast that's going to actually create a long cast in the front. So you can experiment and play with different things, but my suggestion is the biggest single thing is don't overcast in the back. Stay within yourself, and a haul is really important. Nice, narrow, skinny loops in the back, and then just straighten your rod out in the front and it's going to go. So we're going to show you that. We're going to distance out a little bit and just try to give you an example of what we're talking about in terms of skinny loops. And that double haul is going to be super important if you want to cast very far in this wind at all. Tailwind. It's pretty much died right now, so there's not much of a tailwind. But if it were a tailwind, I still need to have a really tight, nice back cast. So we're going to have a little bit, I'm going to do a little bit of a haul on the pickup so I can make it a pretty nice back cast. I'm going to make a couple of false casts and then shoot this probably, I don't know, 12 or 15 feet of line that's sitting on the ground here. So we're ready. There we go. Casting with a tailwind. Biggest single thing, don't overcast in the back. Try to make those loops as tight as you possibly can. We now have a headwind, and I'm going to cast towards it, and the wind came up just a bit more, so now we've got a pretty good headwind. The biggest thing on a headwind, again, is a nice narrow loop. Unroll that fly right as the fly unrolls, it hits the surface. Line speed, narrow loop, and that's how you're going to get your accuracy. So what I'm going to do is turn around, and the first one you can do, it's a really good one, the first one you can do is a sidearm cast because it qualifies for all those characteristics. A little bit of a headwind. I think a sidearm cast or horizontal cast is a really good cast, so we'll do that first. And the beauty of this cast is, boy, you get right down on the ground. If that flag is my boom, there's no way that thing is going to get whacked off course because the wind doesn't have a chance to affect it. It doesn't spook fish, very efficient, so I like that. The other thing you can do is a little more higher trajectory in the back, lower in the front. So you're going to have a higher trajectory in the back. And then hit it. So that's the other possibility. So let's assume the wind is just, it's really a perfect wind for me. I'm here and the wind's blowing into this shoulder. My fly line's getting blown away from me anyway, so I don't have any real serious issues in terms of safety or anything else if the wind's blowing into my opposite shoulder of my casting arm. The biggest thing there is make sure you still got a tight loop and your line unrolls just above the surface. Those are the two biggest things, because if you don't, then accuracy is going to suffer. So those are the wind casts, and I think all those casts are pretty effective. You don't have to be real fancy, but you have to practice. And practice is the key, and learning to double haul is the key. Understanding trajectory. So all of those kinds of things. Good luck with that, but go out and practice in the wind. That's the biggest single thing you can do.